The impact of unemployment insurance during the crisis of 1930s. The number of union members in Belgium increased markedly from around 610,000 to 907,000 in the short period between 1929 and 1938. There can be no doubt that this increase is explained by the flight of working people to the unemployment funds. Many statements by union officials attest to this. More detailed analysis of the modalities and rhythm of growth of union membership also points in this direction. On the eve of the economic crisis, around a third of the total number of manual and non-manual workers in commerce and industry were affiliated to a trade union. On the eve of the Second World War, this share had increased to around a half. The proportion of workers insured against unemployment in relation to this total is almost identical, since nearly all union members were insured against unemployment, and vice versa, with the exception of the public sector unions, which didn't need to operate unemployment funds. It is noteworthy that the phenomenon of uninterrupted growth of union membership during the Depression occurred precisely in those countries which operated a more or less comparable Keynes system of unemployment insurance, while unions in other countries with different unemployment benefit systems had to cope with a loss in membership, at least in the initial and most devastating phase of the economic crisis. It is not clear to me whether a causal link can be established for the first group of countries, such as Belgium, between the specific organization of unemployment insurance and growth of union membership, and whether, therefore, the latter can indeed be attributed to a refuge mechanism. Despite the quantitative growth, the crisis period was not a golden age for the Belgian trade union movement. On the contrary, and this is not only as a result of the factors which traditionally adversely affect workers' lives in times of economic crisis. Paradoxically, it was the system of unemployment insurance which caused enormous problems. The pivotal position which the union had acquired in the management of the social lives of the people now brought some pernicious side effects. The influx of unemployed into the insurance funds overloaded the system. The additional administrative burden, which the unions were soon unable to bear, was made even heavier by the government constantly issuing new and sometimes confusing regulations. At times, the union bureaucracy was thrown into total confusion. Relation between the union apparatus and the grassroots became strained. Union officials regularly deplored the lack of union spirit among the new members, who had often only joined for the sake of the unemployment benefit. Confronted with a maze of government regulation and restrictive measures, the anger of the unemployed sometimes turned against their union unemployment fund. Often the fund were not responsible for the difficult situation, but it was the institution with which the unemployed came into direct contact. Mass unemployment also presented the unions with a dramatic financial problem. Having to pay thousands of unemployed, the funds were often exhausted for long stretches, at which points the government took over their obligation. More importantly, however, the union's other financial resources also came under tremendous strain. Keen inter-union rivalry, particularly between socialist and Catholic ones, meant that each union tried to attract as many uninsured workers as possible. Much effort was put into retaining affiliated workers and poaching workers from other unions. In this struggle for members, the unions offered potential members a whole range of fringe benefits which had no statutory basis or were in some cases actually illegal. As a further strain on their finances, the union funds often advanced the supplements paid by the municipalities and the provinces, which had been unable to meet obligation as unemployment soared. In this way, the local authorities quickly accumulated considerable debts to the workers' organization which they could not repay in the short term. All these factors force union leaders to call on their organizations' other financial resources to deal with the financial consequences of rising unemployment. Strike funds, administrative funds, and solidarity funds were exhausted. Especially in 1932 and 1933, many unions found themselves on the verge of bankruptcy. So, despite the increase in its membership during the Depression, the Belgian trade union movement was confronted with particularly pressing problems. The particular organization of unemployment insurance, leading to administrative confusion, concentration of activity on tiresome management tasks, and financial exhaustion, precipitated a real crisis which made many union members reconsider the aims and methods of their organization and the future of unemployment insurance. We will return to this later. The unemployment crisis also elicited reaction from other groups and institutions. The employers and the conservative political parties had been very unhappy with the national unemployment legislation introduced in 1920 until 21 at the instigation of the socialists and the unions. But the employer's attitude to unemployment insurance underwent a remarkable change over the years. While they had rejected it in principle during the 19th century and at the beginning of the 20th, a new attitude subsequently began to take hold, especially after the First World War. They probably recognized that the introduction of such a system was inevitable, but they also became aware of the considerable social impact it could and did have. In short, not the principle of unemployment insurance as such, but the concrete form which the system would take became the employer's main concern. Their anxiety increased as the insurance system took what they considered a dangerous turn. Some facts illustrate the new development. Even before 1914, Louis Forles, the originator of the Ghent system, acknowledged the criticism directed at it, primarily preferential treatment of union of their members and neglect of unorganized workers. To overcome this failing, he proposed involving the employers in unemployment insurance through the creation of municipal crisis fund in the same way that municipal unemployment fund supplemented the union fund's payment to the unemployed, so the crisis fund would supplement the payment of new employers' unemployment funds. The union and the employers' fund would operate in different spheres. The former would support those workers whose labor contract had been terminated, while the latter would compensate for the loss of income incurred by workers, whether or not insured with the union fund, who had been partly or temporarily laid off without termination of their contract. This proposal had been launched in Ghent but not taken up just before the war, but after the war it attracted some interest, especially from the employers in the textile industry. Nothing lasting came of this, but the employers provided other important proof of their newfound interest in unemployment insurance. Following liberation, the government initiated a broad debate over the introduction of a totally new compulsory unemployment insurance. The employers at that point expressed their willingness to contribute financially to such an arrangement with the provision that they would also have control over the unemployment funds, so that they would no longer be exclusively in the hands of the union. Thank you.